Brett, you were mentioning Donovan Mitchell. And there's a lot of stories coming out that Donovan has 3 destinations he would like to go and play for. The Knicks being one of them, Miami being another, and who's the other team? I think it was
the Atlanta Hawks.
The Hawks. That's right, the Hawks. Now, your thoughts. Obviously, the Knicks being the team that he grew up as a fan of. He's not a big fan of, obviously, some owner over there. But again, the Knicks have a significant amount of draft stock and obviously some good young players. And Miami, who were really maybe a game away from being in the NBA Finals this year. I don't know about the Hawks. Even though the Hawks have some good young players, they could make a move for them. I think the Hawks are on the back burner. I think it's either Miami, New York, if he goes anywhere. And now that the coach was fired, or he stepped down, of course, it could benefit Utah keeping Donovan Mitchell. So what are your thoughts with this Donovan Mitchell situation?
Yeah, so let's kind of just run through all the teams and just kind of touch on them a little bit of what's going on with them. Donovan Mitchell in Utah right now, the team has zero intention of trading Donovan Mitchell. Teams have reached out to them about wanting a trade and trying to pursue Donovan Mitchell, and they have not been responsive to any of them. That's the Utah Jazz not being responsive to any trades. They want him to be the backbone of their franchise. They want to build around him long-term, and they're married to him long-term with that contract, and Donovan Mitchell hasn't requested out. He's not the type of person that wants to quit necessarily on his franchise, but this is a trying time for them. He was very fond of Quin Snyder as their head coach, and there's been some turmoil within the organization, both front office-wise and player-wise. I mean, we saw it back in the bubble season when Rudy Gobert tested positive for coronavirus, and that did not sit well with Donovan Mitchell, given Rudy Gobert's antics beforehand, before testing positive. And there was a little bit of headbutting there. They mended the relationship in quotes, and they moved on. And the following season, there were some questions with Donovan Mitchell and his ankle injury in the playoffs. I mean, he sat out game 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies when he said he was ready to go. His doctor said he was ready to go, and the team said that no, that he wasn't ready to go. So they batted heads there. And it's just been a lot of stuff piling up through the years that has started to grow into some frustrations for Mitchell. And from knowing him and talking to him personally from when he was at Louisville and I was at Louisville, and both of us being with the basketball team there, he is a guy that wants to build something special on his own. He wants to truly be a part of the Utah Jazz franchise and turn them into a contending team. But can they really do so? Because Rudy Gobert has been a huge question mark for them. He's been a liability at times offensively. They have a lot of older assets. So it's going to be interesting to see how the front office conducts this coaching search and whether or not they give Donovan Mitchell involvement in it, because he does want to be involved in it. He wants them to hire somebody that will fit long-term and help turn this franchise into the championship contender that they think they are. So now looking at the other teams, do the Knicks have a chance to get him? Absolutely. I mean, Donovan Mitchell has always been fond of the New York Knicks franchise, and I think that they definitely have assets to move, potentially Julius Randle. I don't think that they would move RJ Barrett at all. I don't think they would move Obi Toppin or Emmanuel quickly. But if that's what it came down to to get Donovan Mitchell, I think at the end of the day, Leon Rose and Scott Perry would potentially pull the trigger to bring in Mitchell, who kind of fits the timeline of an RJ Barrett or an Obi Toppin, who are all young players. And Donovan Mitchell's been a proven multi-time All-Star early on in his career, an elite level scorer in this league. So I definitely think that in the future, it's on the table. And if things don't go well for Utah this coming year in the 2022-23 season, I think he could absolutely request out, and the Knicks would definitely be on their radar. As for the Heat, I just don't see how they could make it work cap-wise. They're married to a lot of the players that they have now: Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler right there. That's $100 million that you owe next year. So you can move contracts like Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson, but you're still going to be a tax-paying team. And now you're getting rid of all your depth that carried you to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So I don't necessarily know if they can get involved, but you never know. With Pat Riley, he can absolutely do anything in this league. When you look at the Atlanta Hawks, though, Trae Young is one of Donovan Mitchell's best friends. So that's why it's an attractive destination for him. They could team up and be arguably the best backcourt in the league. And they have assets to move around. They have a handful of draft picks. They have a handful of some young talents. A guy like DeAndre Hunter, John Collins could potentially be put in a trade. You have veterans like Danilo Gallinari, Bogdan Bogdanovic. So I think the Hawks, it's a very outside chance to land Mitchell. But moving forward down the line, could we see him team up and play with Trae Young either in Atlanta or somewhere else? Absolutely. Those two are really tight friends, and I think that they could definitely team up in the future.
So I want to go back to what you were saying about Quin Snyder, because a lot of these teams have been recently making these big coaching moves, guys that we thought of as top coaches that all of a sudden either like Brad Stevens taking front office positions. You have a case Dallas firing Rick Carlisle for Jason Kidd, and they go to the Western Conference Finals. So what does that say really about the landscape of coaching? Does it matter as much as it should, like it does in other sports, or do you think there's a executive end to it more, like you're seeing with a team like the Celtics?
It's definitely executive end more nowadays, and it's just because there's an emphasis on winning. These guys that are put in these front office positions, whether it's general manager, assistant general manager, the lead scouts, they're all put on a clock. The clock's wound up, and they have a time limit to get their team going. And right now, if you ask me, I'd personally say for each organization, they got like a 3 or 4 year building period to try and turn things around. And if they don't, the owners get frustrated, they move on and clean house. So when you look at the coaches, they're the first guy that's going to get all the blame. And rightfully so for some situations, they should get the blame. But the general managers are asked by the owners to make rash, quick decisions. And if things aren't going well, guess what? It's on the general manager, and the general managers are going to try to put the blame on someone else. That way they can keep their job. So putting the blame on the coach, they bring in a new head coach, maybe things turn around, and all of a sudden they look like a candidate for executive of the year or GM of the year. So I definitely think that this is something that we've seen from the front office and up in terms of all the coaches moving around. But at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and this business revolves around winning. And some teams, it just hasn't happened over the years. And with the Utah Jazz for Quin Snyder, I don't necessarily think they were going to fire him. I mean, he's been a beloved coach there, and the players love playing for him. Management really likes him. But for him, I think it was a lot of things growing at once within the organization. You have all this trade chatter going on this offseason, and them kind of taking a step back as a franchise where they were the 1 seed in the West last year, had that disappointing loss to the Clippers after being up 2-0. Then this year they lose to Luka Doncic and the Mavericks in the first round. So I think that he needs a break. He's taken the year off to clear his mind, and he'll come back and probably be a very big lead candidate to take over the San Antonio Spurs job when Greg Popovich retires.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Sports Illustrated NBA reporter and insider Brett Siegel. Last question for us before we let you go, Brett. This offseason, obviously the NBA draft, some of the free agents. This is not a big offseason for NBA free agents. I mean, Zach LaVine is going to be available. I heard he's going to go interview with the Lakers. I don't know how the Lakers are going to pull that one off unless they get rid of Russell Westbrook. But there are quite a few teams that he's interested in playing for, Dallas being another team. Where do you think Zach LaVine goes? Because it doesn't seem like he's going back to Chicago. And what do you think could happen this offseason that could really change the sides, the strengths of some of the Eastern and Western Conference teams for next year?
Yeah, Zach LaVine's situation is very interesting because while he has said that he is open to staying in Chicago and he likes the franchise, he likes playing with the Bulls and DeMar DeRozan and what they've built this year, he's also said that he's never been a free agent before, and he wants to have that experience of teams bringing him out to the steakhouse and sitting down with him and having these free agent discussions of this is what we're offering you, this is what our future looks like, and really thinking about his future because Zach LaVine is in the prime of his career. He's a couple-time All-Star now, and he's playing some of the best basketball of his career. So this is a pivotal time for him to make a decision and figure out where his future lies in this league and whether or not he wants to go the chasing rings route or if he wants to build something special. Ultimately, I think he is going to stay in Chicago, but I don't think it's going to be a decision that's made within the first few days of free agency. I think he's really going to take his time with this. He's going to take that first week or so to lay down all of his options, hear them all out. And at the end of the day, I think he's just kind of using this as a ploy to get what he wants from the Chicago Bulls and for them to ensure him the amount of money that he deserves. And I think that they're in a good place as a franchise. You look at what they have with the 3 All-Stars, LaVine, DeRozan, Vucevic. I think they need to add a couple more bench talents, maybe move on from Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline or after this year if things don't work out. But, I mean, LaVine and DeRozan, those two are definitely guys that you can build around to build a championship contender in the Eastern Conference. You just need to figure out your identity. Are they going to be a good offensive team or are they going to be a good defensive team? Because at times it seemed like that they were either one or the other, and they didn't really figure out where they were going this season. Injuries played a big part in that. Getting Lonzo Ball back will be critical for them because he played a really key role early on in the season. Alex Caruso wasn't really healthy this year, and then you had guys in and out because they got hit hard by COVID. So I think the next season for the Chicago Bulls is going to be interesting. And it's just going to be all about that secondary talent that they bring in around LaVine, DeRozan, and Vucevic.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us, and we're definitely going to get you on again. The inside stuff, the inside scoop of the NBA is definitely your forte, and we really appreciate you joining us. Tell the fans how they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. It's at Brett Siegel, Siegel, NBA on Twitter. And you can follow my work and all of our work at Sports Illustrated Fast Break on Fan Nation. It's covered everything from topics going around the league, like who tweeted what or who's wearing what to the game and betting stuff, all the way to my inside analysis of and daily pieces and weekly pieces of stuff that's going on around the league, like the Utah Jazz situation with Donovan Mitchell. We're going to have a lot of content coming up with the draft, myself doing my big boards and mock drafts coming up over the next 2 weeks. And then the draft, of course, we'll have all the inside scoops on that. And then right after the draft, we got free agency and summer league. So it's definitely a busy time. And if you're a fan of the NBA right now, it's probably like Christmas in July for you.
Well, I've been following everything that you've been doing. You're a great writer, and keep up the good work. And we'll have you on very, very soon again, man. Do what you do best, and that's get out your NBA scoop, man.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Arrow and Speedy.